I was standing at the front desk of the Lakeside Inn with my wife's forgotten pill organizer in my hand, still thinking like a husband, still trying to be useful, when the clerk slid a thick, old-fashioned ledger toward me and ran his finger down the page. I wasn't snooping, I wasn't hunting. I was just there to drop something off for the woman who told me she needed a, quote, solo trip to find herself. Then I saw it, Tara Walker, and right under it, like a second punch landing before I'd even felt the first, Brent Caldwell, same room, same check-in time. My stomach hollowed out so fast I thought I might fold in half. My hands started shaking so hard the plastic case rattled against the counter, and all I could hear was the soft beep of a keycard reader behind me and the clerk's polite voice going distant. "Sir, are you okay?" he asked. I nodded like an idiot because men like me learn early how to swallow pain in public. I wasn't okay. My marriage had just changed shape right there in that lobby, and I didn't know what I was going to do with that knowledge yet. I drove back to Ashford with my jaw clenched, knuckles white on the steering wheel, the heater blasting because I couldn't stop shivering even though it wasn't cold. My phone sat in the cup holder like a live grenade. I finally picked it up and called Tara. She answered too fast, voice too bright, like she'd been waiting for the phone to ring. "You're overreacting, Jason," she said before I'd even finished my first sentence. The twist hit me hard when she added, almost word for word like someone had fed it to her, "This is why I needed space." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her who Brent Caldwell was and why his name was written next to hers in a hotel ledger. But I didn't. I just hung up without fighting, and the silence afterward felt like a decision I hadn't admitted I was making. The road blurred in front of me. My chest felt tight. And somewhere deep inside, I felt the first crack of something breaking that I'd spent years building. At home, the house smelled like yesterday's coffee and furniture polish. Everything looked the same, couch, television, kitchen table, but it all felt different now, like I was walking through a stage set of my own life. Our framed anniversary photo sat on the hallway table, me in my work jacket, Tara, in that pale dress she loved, both of us smiling like two people who had never lied to each other. I stared at my own smile in that photo and felt ashamed, like I'd been clapping for a show that ended years ago. I pulled out my phone and checked our shared card activity. 2 breakfasts, a steakhouse charge for $94, a suite upgrade fee. My breath caught. I whispered out loud to the empty room, "So I'm paying for this." And just like that, the anger finally lit up underneath the grief. Not rage, not violence, just a cold, steady anger that felt like clarity. I sat down at the kitchen table and started taking screenshots of every charge, every date, every receipt. Tara texted me an hour later. It was a neat little paragraph that didn't sound like her at all. Too polished, too rehearsed. "I need you to respect my boundaries right now. This trip is about healing and self-discovery." Then at the end she added, "Mom says you'll never change." I could practically hear Evelyn's tone in those words, sweet and sharp at the same time, like honey poured over glass. Evelyn, my mother-in-law, had always thought I was a placeholder in Tara's life. Dependable, steady, easy to mock. The payoff was ugly clarity. This wasn't just a fling. This was a coordinated erasing of me. Then my phone rang. Evelyn's name lit up the screen. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I needed to hear this. "Don't embarrass Tara, Jason," she said the moment I picked up. No hello, no warmth. She's finally doing something for herself. I didn't argue. I just said, "Okay," and hung up. But inside, something shifted. I wasn't the problem. They'd already decided I was. I slept on the couch that night with the television off, listening to the fridge hum and the heater click on and off in the dark. My mind wouldn't stop running loops. Hotel rooms, receipts, Evelyn's voice, Tara's too bright tone. In the morning, I drove to the bank before work. My hands were steady now, even though my heart wasn't. I opened a new account for my paycheck and filled out the direct deposit form with clean, careful handwriting. The banker, a young woman with kind eyes, didn't ask questions. She just processed everything quietly and told me it would take effect in 2 business cycles. My phone buzzed on the counter. Tara, cheerful as ever. "I'll be home in a few days. Please behave." That word, behave, landed like a slap. She wasn't talking to her husband anymore. She was talking to a child. And I realized with cold certainty that she'd stopped seeing me as a partner. I was just an obstacle now, something to manage until I wasn't useful anymore. I sat in a small office later that week with a professional who didn't know my wife and didn't care about her mother's opinions. His name was on the door in plain letters, no drama, no judgment. He spoke plainly, like we were discussing a home repair instead of my collapsing marriage. Separate income. Cancel shared access, secured documents, update directives, clean steps, no drama, no revenge. I heard myself say I don't want revenge. I just don't want to be hurt anymore. He looked at me over his reading glasses and replied, "Then protect yourself, Jason. That's not revenge. That's survival." The cliffhanger was the calm in my chest after I left his office. For the first time in weeks, I felt control returning. Not over Tara. Not over what she'd done. But over myself, over my own life, over the things I could still choose. I drove home with the windows down, breathing cold air, and felt something like hope mixed with grief. It was bitter, but it was mine. I pulled the lockbox from the closet shelf that night, dust puffing up like the house had been holding its breath with me. Inside were passports, property deeds, insurance documents, my whole life in paper form. I spread them out on the bed and started organizing everything into a folder I could keep close. The twist hit me when I realized a manila envelope I swore was there last month was missing. It had copies of our mortgage paperwork and some old tax returns. My stomach turned. I didn't accuse anyone yet. I couldn't prove anything, but I moved everything I had left to places where only I could reach them. A locked drawer at work, a safe deposit box at the new bank, a fireproof case under the seat of my truck. I wasn't being paranoid. I was being careful. And that distinction mattered more than I'd ever understood before. Tara had taught me that people you trust can become strangers faster than you think. Tara walked in 3 days later with a tan that looked purchased and a suitcase that smelled like hotel soap, not our laundry detergent. She kissed my cheek like we were neighbors passing on the sidewalk. "Can we not do this right now?" she said before I'd even opened my mouth. I noticed a room key card tucked in the front pocket of her wallet when she thought I wasn't looking. My stomach flipped again, that same hollow drop I'd felt at the hotel desk. But I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just smiled tightly and said sure, because I was done giving her explosions to point at, done giving her reasons to make me the villain in whatever story she was telling herself. She went upstairs to shower, humming a song I didn't recognize, and I stood in the kitchen feeling like a ghost in my own home. I heard the water running. I heard her phone buzz on the counter, and I knew, deep in my bones, that I was already gone to her. Evelyn arrived the next afternoon, without knocking, heels clicking on the hardwood like she owned the floor. She looked me up and down with that thin smile she always wore when she wanted to cut me without making a scene. "You should be grateful she stayed as long as she did, Jason," she said, setting her purse on my kitchen counter like she was claiming territory. Tara stood behind her, silent, arms crossed, staring at the floor. And the twist was that silence. She let her mother humiliate me in my own kitchen without saying a word. I felt something cold settle in my chest, something final. I walked over to the hallway table, picked up the anniversary photo, and carried it to the bedroom. I put it in the closet, face down, where neither of them could touch it. When I came back, Evelyn was still talking, something about emotional unavailability and growth. I didn't argue. I just looked at Tara and said, "Your mother needs to leave." Her eyes went wide, but she didn't defend me. She never did. I canceled Tara's authorized access on the credit cards that night and moved my income fully to the new account. Clean, legal, quiet. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Tara's voice was panic masked as rage. "What did you do?" she demanded. No hello, no softness. I kept my voice steady. I stopped funding a lie. She sucked in a breath like I'd slapped her. "You're trying to control me," she hissed, and I realized that was the new script. Evelyn had given her the words, the angle, the victim card to play. I didn't defend myself, I didn't explain. I just said, you can spend your own money however you want. You just can't spend mine. Then I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear this time, from something sharper, from the realization that I'd just drawn a line I should have drawn years ago. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty about it. I felt something close to free. My banker, Olivia, called me 2 days later, not with gossip, with caution. Someone tried to get information on your accounts yesterday, she said, voice low and professional. My chest tightened. What kind of information? The twist landed hard when she added, it sounded like an older woman insisting she had a right to access them. She didn't have the security answers, so we declined. I pictured Evelyn's smile, that practiced charm she used to get what she wanted, and I felt something cold settle behind my ribs. Thank you, I said, throat tight. Olivia paused, then added gently, I flagged your account with extra security. No one gets in without you present. I nearly cried from sheer relief that someone, anyone, took me seriously. After I hung up, I sat in my truck outside the bank and stared at my hands. Evelyn wasn't just steering Tara anymore. She was coming for me directly. And I realized this wasn't just about an affair. It was about control. About erasing me completely. I requested the full statement for the hotel charge, that it hit our shared account before I closed it. No spying, just my own records. It arrived by email 2 days later. The details made my stomach turn. The suite. The upgrade. A romance package I didn't buy, for a trip that wasn't solo. 2 robes. 2 breakfasts. Champagne, on arrival. When I showed Tara the printout, she didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She just scoffed and said, it didn't mean anything. I stared at her, waiting for more, waiting for something that felt like remorse. But she just crossed her arms and looked past me like I was furniture. That was the moment heartbreak turned into resolve. If it didn't mean anything, then neither did my money, neither did my name on those charges. Neither did the years I'd spent trying to make her happy. I folded the statement carefully and put it in my locked file. Then I walked past her without another word, and she didn't try to stop me. Our son Noah called from overseas 2 days later. His voice was tight, careful, like he was trying to stay respectful while bracing for impact. Grandma told me you're being difficult, Dad, he said, and my stomach knotted at the thought of Evelyn using him like a weapon. I kept my voice low and steady. I'm not going to poison you against your mom, Noah, but I am going to tell you the truth. I heard him breathing on the other end of the line. The cliffhanger was his pause, long, heavy, like he was deciding whether to believe me or the grandmother who'd been whispering in his ear his whole life. Then he said quietly, "Tell me everything." So I did. I told him about the ledger, the charges, the lies. I told him about Evelyn showing up unannounced and Tara letting her mother humiliate me in my own home. I told him I wasn't leaving his mother. I was protecting myself. When I finished, Noah was silent for a long time. Then he said, "I'm sorry, Dad, I didn't know." And I realized I'd just gained a witness. My neighbor, an older woman named Helen, knocked on my door that weekend. She asked if I was okay, then hesitated like she was carrying something she didn't want to drop. "I have something you should see, Jason," she said, pulling out her phone. She showed me her doorbell footage from 3 weeks earlier. The timestamp was from a Tuesday afternoon when I'd been at work. The video showed Tara loading a suitcase into a silver sedan I didn't recognize. A man got out to help her. Tall, dark hair, confident smile. Brent Caldwell. My face burned with humiliation, but the payoff was undeniable proof. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't a mistake. It was planned. I thanked Helen, voice tight, and went back inside. I opened a notebook and started writing. Dates, times, charges, footage. Facts laid out like I was building a lifeboat, one plank at a time. Because I could feel the water rising, and I wasn't going to drown in someone else's lie. I saw a transfer from our savings account to a business account I didn't recognize. The name on the receiving end was Caldwell Consulting, $5,000. Gone. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. When I asked Tara about it, she snapped, "It's none of your business," like I was a stranger questioning her purchases. Like I hadn't worked 60-hour weeks to fill that account. The twist came when she admitted, casually, that Brent had projects, and she was helping him out. My vision blurred. She wasn't just cheating. She was funding him. With our money. With my labor. I set bank alerts on every account I still had access to and froze what I could. I left enough in the shared account for bills, mortgage, utilities, insurance. Then I locked down everything else. And when I did, I felt my own dignity snap into place like a bone resetting after a break. Painful, but necessary. And finally, in the right position. I met Tara at a diner we used to love, the one where the waitress still knew my coffee order, neutral ground, daylight, witnesses. I slid the paperwork across the table. Financial separation, updated beneficiaries, revised account access. We're separating finances and living arrangements, I said, voice steady. She laughed, loud and cruel, like I'd just told the funniest joke she'd ever heard. You can't do that. The payoff was my calm response. I already did. Her smile faded. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. She looked at the papers like they were written in a language she didn't understand. You're punishing me, she whispered. I shook my head. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. She stood up so fast her chair scraped across the floor, loud enough that other people turned to look. She walked out without another word, and I sat there with my cold coffee, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Not happiness. Not victory. Just the quiet, steady relief of finally choosing myself. Evelyn cornered me outside the hardware store 2 days later. Her voice was syrupy for anyone watching, but her eyes were sharp and cold. Men like you always become monsters when they're scared, she said, loud enough that people nearby could hear. My skin crawled at the performance. She was setting the stage, painting me as the villain before I even had a chance to speak. The twist was her threat. She leaned in close and said, "Quiet now. I'll make sure everyone knows you abandoned Tara emotionally, that you drove her away." I felt my stomach turn, but I kept my voice steady. "You don't get access to my life anymore, Evelyn." I walked away while my legs shook, while my heart pounded, while every instinct screamed at me to defend myself. But I didn't, because I knew that's what she wanted. Drama. Witnesses. A reason to make me the monster. I got in my truck and drove home in silence, and I realized something important. Her words only had power if I let them. A credit alert hit my phone 3 days later, a new inquiry tied to a loan application I didn't submit. My chest went tight, but I didn't panic. I moved fast, froze my credit, locked down every account, documented everything with timestamps and screenshots. When I confronted Tara, she admitted, voice small and defensive, that she'd considered options. I asked what that meant. She wouldn't look at me. "Brent says we need a fresh start," she said, and my blood ran cold at the word we. Not you and me. Not our marriage. We. Her and Brent. The cliffhanger hit hard when I realized what she meant. A fresh start, funded by my name, my credit, my years of hard work. She wasn't just leaving me. She was trying to take everything with her. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just said, "You can have a fresh start, but you can't use my name to build it." Then I called my credit monitoring service and put a fraud alert on everything I owned. Brent approached me in a parking lot outside the grocery store the following week. He had that effortless smile men wear when they've never been told no, when charm has always been enough. "Let her be happy," he said. like he was doing me a favor. Like I was the obstacle keeping Tara from some better life. The twist came when he implied, almost casually, that Tara had promised he'd be, quote, taken care of. I saw it then. The user's angle. Money. Comfort. Status. A woman willing to fund his projects while he played the charming boyfriend. I looked him in the eye and said, calm as I could manage, she can choose you. But she can't choose my wallet. His smile cracked. Not a lot. Just a flicker at the edges. You're a small man, Jason, he said, trying to recover. I shrugged. Maybe. But I'm not paying for your life anymore. I walked past him, groceries in hand, and I didn't look back. I heard him say something else, something angry. But I didn't care. His opinion of me didn't matter anymore. Tara came home that night furious. She paced past family photos on the walls like they were props in a play she was tired of acting in. You're punishing me, she said again, like repetition would make it true. I looked at her, really looked, and replied, I'm protecting myself. The payoff was her flinch. Because she'd expected pleading. She'd expected guilt. She'd expected me to collapse and beg her to stay. Instead, I was calm. Steady. Unmovable. Then she dropped a new bomb, voice sharp and certain. Mom says you should move out. This is too much stress for me. I felt my jaw tighten. This is my house too, Tara. I'm not going anywhere. She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. And I realized they'd already decided how this would go. Evelyn would spin the narrative. Tara would play the victim. And I'd be erased, quietly and completely, from the life I'd helped build. But I wasn't leaving. Not anymore. Evelyn hosted a community fundraiser 2 weeks later at the local recreation center. I didn't plan to go, but I got a call from the event organizer, a man named Stuart who I'd worked with on past projects. We have you down for a pledge, Jason, he said, confused but polite. In support of Tara's healing journey? My face burned with humiliation. I hadn't pledged anything. I hadn't even known about the event. Evelyn had used my name, my reputation, without asking. The payoff was quiet truth. I told Stuart, voice steady, I never pledged that. Someone used my name without permission. He went silent for a moment, then said carefully, We need to speak with Evelyn. The cliffhanger was his tone, no longer polite but sharp, because Evelyn had just tried to spend my name like cash, and Stuart knew it. I sent him a follow-up email that same day with a clear statement. No insults, no drama, just facts. And I saved a copy of everything. At the next community meeting, Evelyn tried to charm her way out. She smiled too hard, voice too bright, hands moving in that rehearsed way people do when they're performing instead of speaking. Someone asked for the pledge details. Who promised what? Where the money was going? Evelyn fumbled. Her smile flickered, then she snapped, voice sharp and ugly for just a second before she caught herself. But it was too late. The room heard her real tone. The twist was how fast people clocked it. She wasn't concerned, she was controlling. And she'd tried to use my name, my credibility, without permission. Stuart stood up and said, calm but firm, We'll be removing that pledge from our records. Evelyn's face went red. I didn't say a word. I didn't gloat. I just sat there and watched her lose control in front of witnesses who wouldn't forget it. And for the first time, I felt something close to vindication. Tara showed up at my door late one night 2 weeks later. Her eyes were swollen, her mascara smudged, her phone clutched in her hand like it had burned her. He said I was convenient, she whispered, voice cracking. That's all I was to him, convenient. The fantasy had finally collapsed into something ugly and real. Brent had used her, drained her, and discarded her the moment she stopped being useful. The payoff was bittersweet. I felt sorry for her, I really did. But that pity didn't erase what she'd done to me. It didn't erase the lies, the humiliation, the months of gaslighting and cruelty. She asked, voice small and broken, "Can I come home?" My answer hung in the air, heavy as the quiet between us. I wanted to say yes. Part of me, the part that still remembered who we used to be, wanted to forgive her, to fix this, to pretend none of it had happened, but I couldn't. Not anymore. "No," I said softly, "you can't." Tara stood in our doorway like a stranger trying to remember the rules of a house she'd helped break. "I made a mistake, Jason," she said, tears streaming down her face. I shook my head. "You made choices, Tara. A lot of them. Over a long time." The twist came mid-conversation when Evelyn called. Tara's phone lit up, and her mother's voice barked through the speaker before Tara even answered. "Don't let him manipulate you. You deserve better than this." Tara stared at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone, and for the first time, she shut it off. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the button, but she did it. The payoff was my steady refusal. I offered her a fair, structured separation plan. No games, no cruelty, just clean boundaries and mutual respect. "You can stay in the guest room for 1 week while you find a place," I said. "After that, we move forward separately." She nodded, too tired to fight, and I closed the door on the old dynamic for good. Months later, the house was still quiet, but it didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt like peace. I took the anniversary photo from the drawer one Saturday morning, looked at it once, and put it away in a box in the attic. Not with anger. Not with bitterness. Just with the understanding that some things can't be fixed, only put away. Tara tried again. One more call. One more please. One more attempt to rewrite what had happened. I said no, without anger, without pride, just finality. That night I sat across from Renee, a good woman with kind eyes I'd met through friends. We talked about simple things, work, hobbies, the weather. And I realized the cleanest victory wasn't revenge or vindication. It was this. I'd stopped paying for my own humiliation. I'd stopped letting other people write my story, and my life finally belonged to me again. Not loud, not dramatic, just mine. And that was enough.